Hana Cho stood in the center of the massive council chamber, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her life. The room stretched above her like a cathedral made of crystal and light. All around her, floating in their designated zones, sat the representatives of 847 alien species. Some looked like nothing she could describe. Others were just lights or clouds of energy. The air smelled strange, like ozone mixed with flowers she had never seen. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with the Earth insignia on her shoulder. Behind her stood Captain Taiyang Park in his military dress uniform, his face stern and unreadable. Dr. Do-Yun Kong fidgeted with his datapad, nervous despite his brilliant mind. Commander Sora Lim stood perfectly still, watching everything with cold, calculating eyes. 3 days ago, Hannah had presented humanity's case for joining the Galactic Council. She had shown them Earth's achievements, its art, its science, its progress. She had spoken of humanity's desire to join the greater galactic community, to learn from older civilizations, to contribute what humans could offer. She had been hopeful, excited, even now, as the veteran high speaker floated forward. That hope turned to ice in her stomach. The veteran looked like a jellyfish made of silver light. It spoke without a mouth, its words appearing directly in her mind. Ambassador Cho of Earth, the Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding humanity's application for membership. The chamber fell silent. Hannah could hear her own heartbeat. The Council finds that humanity is not ready for membership at this time. Your species has demonstrated concerning levels of violence, both against your own kind and your planetary environment. Your history is filled with warfare, destruction, and chaos. You have barely achieved interstellar travel. You are, in the Council's assessment, too young, too volatile, and too dangerous. The words hit Hana like physical blows. She felt Taiyang tense behind her, but he remained silent. A being made of pure blue light spoke next, its voice like wind chimes. The Council hereby establishes the soul barrier. Humanity is restricted to a 50 light-year radius around your home star. Any attempt to colonize beyond this boundary will be considered an act of aggression and will be met with appropriate force. Another voice, this one belonging to something that looked like a collection of floating rocks, added more. Humanity is granted probationary status. You may engage in limited trade with Council-approved merchants. You may purchase basic technologies. However, all human vessels and facilities will be subject to Council inspections. Any military expansion will be closely monitored. The silver jellyfish spoke again. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when humanity has evolved beyond its primitive nature, we will reconsider. Until then, you are confined to your home system. This decision is final. Hannah wanted to scream. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them about all the beautiful things humans had created, about their capacity for kindness, about their determination to be better. But she was a diplomat, so she simply bowed her head. The people of Earth hear the Council's decision. We will return home and deliver this message. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. The Council had given them a basic FTL drive as part of their generous probationary status. Hannah spent most of those 2 weeks in her quarters, staring out at the stars and fighting back tears of humiliation. Taiyang found her there, on the last day before they reached Earth. He stood in the doorway, his weathered face thoughtful. You did everything right, Ambassador. This isn't your failure. Then whose failure is it? Hannah asked bitterly. I was supposed to bring humanity into the galactic community. Instead, I brought back a cage. They're afraid of us, Taiyang said, moving to stand beside her at the window. Did you see how they looked at us? They see humans as children with guns. Dangerous, unpredictable children. Maybe they're right, Hannah said quietly. Maybe, Taiyang agreed. But being dangerous doesn't mean being wrong. We fought wars on Earth, yes. We made mistakes. But we learned. We united. We reached for the stars. And now they want us to sit in a corner and wait 1,000 years while they decide if we're good enough? Hannah looked at him. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe we don't need their permission, Taiyang said. His eyes were hard. There's a whole galaxy out there, Ambassador. The Council controls the inner systems, the rich core worlds. But the outer rim? That lawless frontier they abandoned? That's free territory. They forbid us from expanding beyond the soul barrier, Hannah reminded him. They forbid us from expanding into their space, Taiyang corrected. The outer rim isn't their space. They gave up on it centuries ago. It's dangerous, yes. Full of pirates and failed colonies and dead civilizations. But it's also full of opportunity, resources, freedom. Hannah turned back to the window, thinking. The idea was insane. The outer rim was called the graveyard of empires for a reason. Hundreds of species had tried to settle there and failed. But what choice did they have? Sit in their solar system like prisoners for 1,000 years? When they arrived on Earth, Hannah delivered the Council's decision to the United Earth government. The reaction was exactly what she expected. Shock, anger, humiliation. The world that had finally united, that had finally reached for the stars, had been told it wasn't good enough. The debates lasted for weeks. Some politicians argued for accepting the Council's terms. They would trade for technology, learn what they could, and try again in a few generations. Others called for defiance, but had no clear plan. It was Taiyang who changed everything. He stood before the Earth Assembly and laid out his proposal. The Council thinks we're too violent, too young, too dangerous. They want us to prove ourselves worthy over 1,000 years. I say we prove ourselves in 10. He showed them maps of the outer rim, star systems rich in rare elements, abandoned terraforming stations, ancient alien facilities waiting to be explored. It won't be easy, he admitted. The rim is dangerous. But humans are good at surviving dangerous places. We survived ice ages. We survived wars. We survived ourselves. We can survive the rim. Doyun added his voice. The Council's technology is advanced, but it's old, stagnant. They've been using the same designs for thousands of years. Human technology is crude by comparison, but it's adaptive. We innovate. We improvise. In the rim, that might be exactly what we need. The vote was close, but it passed. Operation Horizon was approved. 12 colony ships would be built, carrying 50,000 of Earth's bravest volunteers into the unknown. Hannah watched the ships being constructed in orbit. Massive vessels designed to carry everything needed to start a new civilization. She had tried to bring humanity into someone else's society and failed. Now humanity would build its own. On the day the first ships launched, Hannah stood on the command deck of the flagship and thought about the Council's words. Too young, too violent, too dangerous. Maybe they were right. But maybe those qualities were exactly what the outer rim needed. Maybe being young meant being adaptable. Maybe being violent meant being strong enough to survive. Maybe being dangerous meant being able to protect what they built. The ships entered FTL space, leaving Earth behind. Ahead lay the outer rim, vast and dark and full of possibility. Behind them lay the Council and their cage and their 1,000-year timeline. Humanity had been rejected. Now they would rise on their own terms. The colony ship New Dawn shuddered as it dropped out of FTL space. Captain Junho Beak gripped his chair's armrests and watched the view screen light up with sensor data. Before them hung a yellow sun with 7 planets orbiting in lazy circles. The third planet glowed blue and green, its atmosphere thick with oxygen and nitrogen. perfect for human life. Run a deep scan, Junho ordered. His crew moved quickly, their fingers dancing across control panels. After 3 weeks of travel through empty space, everyone was eager to finally see their new home. Yuna Shin, the ship's chief engineer, looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. There are structures on the surface. Big ones. But they're not active." Junho leaned forward. "What kind of structures?" "Looks like terraforming equipment," Yuna said, her young face puzzled. "Really old. Maybe 1,000 years or more. Whoever built them is long gone." "Ghost colony," muttered Minho-chan from his security station. The former soldier had seen enough death to recognize an abandoned world. Someone tried to settle here and failed. Junho nodded slowly. The Outer Rim was full of such places. The council called it the graveyard of empires for good reason. But humanity didn't have many choices. This planet had water, breathable air, and valuable minerals. It would have to do. "Take us down," he ordered, "and keep weapons ready. Whatever killed the last people here might still be around." The new dawn descended through thick clouds. Rain battered the hull as they approached the surface. Through breaks in the storm, Juno could see vast ruins. Towers that stretched toward the sky like broken fingers. Roads that led nowhere. And at the center of it all, a massive terraforming station, silent and dead. It landed on a flat plain near a river. Within hours, the other 11 colony ships arrived, forming a circle of metal giants on the alien soil. 50,000 humans stepped out onto the planet they would call Shin Sol. The first week was hard work. They set up temporary shelters, tested the soil, mapped the immediate area. The ruins fascinated everyone, but Junho kept people away from them. Something had killed an entire civilization here. Until they knew what, caution was necessary. Yuna spent her days studying the abandoned terraforming station. The technology was far beyond anything Earth had created, but it shared some basic principles. "I think I can get it working again," she told Junho on the 8th day. "Not at full power, but enough to help stabilize the atmosphere in our settlement zone." "Do it," Junho approved. "We need every advantage we can get." On the 15th day, the advantage they needed came from an unexpected direction. A ship appeared in orbit, small and fast. It wasn't human. My NHO-Chun security teams went on high alert. "Captain, we've got incoming. One vessel, heavily armed. They're hailing us." Junho took a deep breath. First contact with Outer Rim locals. This could go very well or very badly. Put them through. The face that appeared on screen looked like a wolf mixed with a lizard, covered in dark scales. Its teeth were sharp, its eyes yellow and cold. "Human colony," it growled, the translation software making its words understandable. "You are in Marauder territory. Pay tribute or die." Junho kept his face calm. He had expected something like this. Pirates were common in the Rim. "We're new here. We don't have much to offer as tribute." The alien laughed, a harsh sound. "Then you will die. We attack in 2 days. Prepare yourselves." The screen went dark. The colony erupted into controlled chaos. Minho organized the defenses, placing the few weapons they had at strategic points. Yuna worked frantically to adapt their equipment for combat. Junho sent messages to the other colony ships, coordinating a unified defense. Commander Sora Lim, who had traveled on the second ship, took charge of tactical planning. She studied the terrain, the settlement layout, and the single defense frigate they had brought from Earth. "We can't win a straight fight," she said coldly. "They have better ships, better weapons. But they don't know how humans think. What do you suggest?" Junho asked. Sora smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "We cheat." 2 days later, the marauders arrived. 5 ships, bristling with weapons, descended toward the colony. They flew in a tight formation, confident and arrogant. These were predators who had hunted countless prey across the rim. They did not know humans. The defense frigate Defiant, under Sora's command, rose to meet them. It looked small and weak compared to the marauder vessels. The pirate ships opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up the sky. Defiant's shields held for exactly 30 seconds before collapsing. The frigate began to fall, trailing smoke and fire. The marauders howled in victory, moving in for the kill. Then the ground opened up beneath them. Minho's teams had spent 2 days digging positions and hiding weapons. Old-fashioned missile launchers, salvaged from the colony ships, fired from concealed pits. The missiles weren't sophisticated by galactic standards, but they were fast and numerous and completely unexpected. 3 marauder ships took direct hits. 1 exploded. 2 spun out of control, crashing into the plains beyond the settlement. The remaining 2 ships pulled up, confused and angry. Their sensors hadn't detected the ground weapons. How was that possible? Yuna's work provided the answer. She had modified the old terraforming station to emit a specific type of radiation that scrambled certain sensor frequencies. The marauders couldn't see what was right below them. Defiant, which had been pretending to crash, suddenly stabilized. Its engines roared back to life. Sora had faked the entire retreat, making the pirates think they had won. Now, with 2 enemy ships distracted and damaged, Defiant struck. The human frigate was smaller and weaker than any marauder vessel. But Sora didn't fight fair. She came at them from below, where their shields were weakest. She used the colony itself as cover, forcing the pirates to risk hitting their own crashed ships. She fired, pulled back, fired again from a different angle, never staying still. Most species in the galaxy fought according to rules. Honor codes. Traditional tactics. Humans had no such limitations. Humans fought to win. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, all 5 marauder ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost some equipment and suffered minor casualties, but the colony stood. JUNHO stood amid the wreckage, watching Minho's teams secure the captured pirates. The aliens looked stunned, confused. They had raided hundreds of colonies. All of them had fought the same way, predictably and according to established patterns. The humans had fought like nothing they had seen before. "We're not in the Council's civilized space anymore," Yuna said, standing beside Juno. Her hands were covered in grease from repairing damaged systems. "Out here, nobody cares about honor or tradition. Out here, you survive any way you can." "Good," Junho said, "because that's exactly what we're good at." News of the battle spread across the outer rim faster than light. A human colony had defeated a marauder raid. The impossible had happened. Some species dismissed it as luck. Others paid attention. In the ruins of the old terraforming station, Yuna made a discovery. The previous inhabitants had left behind data cores, still functional after 1,000 years. She couldn't read most of it, but the technical schematics were clear enough. Weapons, shields, engine, designs. Technology. It could be combined with human innovation. As the colony grew and more humans arrived from Earth, they began to understand something important. The Council had rejected them because humans were young and violent and unpredictable. But in the outer rim, those qualities weren't weaknesses. They were advantages. JUNHO stood on a hill overlooking the settlement as the sun set on their new world. 50,000 humans, working together, building something new. Behind them, light years away, the Council sat in their perfect crystal chambers and judged species by their age and their adherence to tradition. Here in the darkness of the rim, Humanity would prove that youth could mean adaptability, that violence could mean strength, and that being unpredictable could mean survival. They had been rejected by the Council. Now they would show the galaxy what rejected humans could become. 5 years had passed since humans first arrived. In the Outer Rim, what started as 12 desperate colonies had grown into 17 thriving systems. The collection of human settlements now had a name, the Terran Reach, and the galaxy was starting to notice. Governor Gina Song stood in her office on Shin Sol, looking at reports from across human space. She was tired. Being the civilian leader of the Rim Council meant solving 1,000 problems every day. Food distribution, mining disputes, defense coordination. But today's problem was different. Today's problem had a heartbeat. 3 ships had appeared at the edge of the Terran Reach. They were damaged, leaking atmosphere, barely holding together. Inside were 30,000 refugees of a species called the Kornathi. They looked like upright lizards, covered in green scales, with large golden eyes that seemed permanently sad. Admiral Hyun-Woo Nam, commander of the Terran Reach Defense Fleet, appeared on her communication screen. He was older now, his hair gray at the temples, but his eyes were still sharp. Governor, we need to make a decision about the Kornathi. They're requesting asylum. Tell me about them, Gina said. According to their leader, they're refugees from the inner systems. The Galactic Council declared their homeworld economically unproductive and relocated them to make room for a veteran development project. They've been wandering the Rim for months, looking for somewhere to settle. Most places turned them away. Gina felt anger rise in her chest. The Council, with all their talk about civilization and advancement, treated entire species like inconvenient obstacles. What are they asking for? Land, safety, a chance to start over. They're agricultural specialists, apparently, good at growing food in difficult conditions. And if we refuse them, they'll keep wandering until their ships fall apart or the marauders find them. Either way, they're dead. Gina made her decision quickly. Bring them in. We'll find them land on New Jeju. It's got the right climate and needs more food production anyway. Some people won't like this, Hyun-Woo warned. Taking in refugees means sharing resources. Then those people can take it up with me, Gina said firmly. We were rejected by the Council. We know what it feels like to be told you don't matter. We're not doing that to anyone else. The Kornathi settled on New Jeju within a month. True to their reputation, they transformed barren land into productive farms with remarkable speed. Their agricultural techniques, combined with human machinery, produced yields that exceeded all expectations. More importantly, they proved loyal and hard-working neighbors. Word spread across the Outer Rim. Humanity, the young and violent species, had given sanctuary to refugees the Council had discarded. Other displaced species began to arrive, carefully at first, then in growing numbers. The insectoid trell, whose hive structures the Council found disturbing. The aquatic Narati, who needed special habitats nobody else wanted to provide. The crystalline shelm, whose method of communication confused most species. Humanity accepted them all. Sang-Hoon Lee, a trader who had made his fortune moving goods between human colonies, saw opportunity in this diversity. He was young and ambitious, with a quick smile and quicker mind. While others saw refugees, Sang-Hoon saw trading partners. He established the Rin Trade Consortium, creating economic networks between human colonies and dozens of all. In species. Unlike Council trade, which operated on strict hierarchies based on a species advancement level, human commerce was simple. You had something to sell. Someone wanted to buy it. You made a deal. No judgments about whether your species was worthy. The Trell produced organic compounds useful in medicine. The Nurati harvested rare crystals from ocean worlds. The Sheln could process radiation in ways that made them perfect for working with dangerous materials. All of these species had been dismissed by the Council as having nothing valuable to offer. Sang-hoon proved them wrong, and everyone prospered. Dr. Do-yoon Kang, now the head of Terran Reach Scientific Institute, spent his days studying why humans succeeded where others failed. He was older, his hair completely gray, but his mind remained sharp as ever. After years of research, he published a document titled The Human Advantage. His findings were simple but profound. Humans were generalists. Most species evolved for specific environments and struggled to adapt to new ones. Humans had evolved on a planet with extreme climate variations, learning to survive in deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, and everything in between. This made them uniquely suited for the unpredictable outer rim. Humans were innovators. Most species used technology the way their ancestors had for thousands of years. Humans constantly modified, adapted, and combined technologies in new ways. Yuna Shin's hybrid weapons, which merged human ballistic principles with alien energy systems, had become standard across the Terran Reach. No other species would have thought to combine such different approaches. Humans formed bonds across species boundaries. Most aliens stayed within their own kind, uncomfortable with those too different from themselves. Humans made friends with everyone. They learned alien languages, adopted alien customs, and genuinely cared about their neighbors, regardless of what they looked like. And humans understood controlled aggression. They knew when to fight and when to talk, when to be hard and when to be soft. Most species were either entirely peaceful or entirely warlike. Humans could be both, switching between modes as the situation required. The Council read Do-yoon's paper with growing unease. These primitive humans were not just surviving the outer rim, they were thriving. The test came when a Council patrol ship entered the Terran Reach. The vessel appeared at the edge of human space, its sensors sweeping across the systems. Then it moved toward Shin Sol, ignoring all communication attempts. Admiral Hyung-woo Nam watched from the bridge of his flagship. He had faced this moment in 100 simulations. The Council was testing them, seeing if humans would back down when confronted with superior force. He would not back down. All ships, defensive positions, he ordered. Across the system, human vessels moved into formation. 12 ships, ranging from military frigates to armed merchant vessels. The Council ship continued its approach. Its weapons were not charged, but its very presence was a threat. A message appeared on Hyun-woo's screen. Human vessels, stand down. This is Council space. You are ordered to cease all expansion immediately. Hyun-woo sent his response. This is Admiral Hyung-woo Nam of the Terran Reach Defense Fleet. You are in our territory. Turn back now. The Council ship's sensors swept across the system, counting the human vessels. 12 ships against 1 Council cruiser. Normally, this would be no contest. Council technology was far superior, but the sensors didn't show 12 ships. They showed 70. Yuna's engineers had equipped every human vessel with holographic projectors and sensor spoofing equipment. Each ship generated multiple false signatures, making the fleet appear 6 times larger than it actually was. The Council ship had no way to know which signatures were real and which were ghosts. The Council commander faced a choice: attack and potentially start a war with what appeared to be a significant military force, or retreat and report this development to the Council. He chose retreat. The Council ship turned and jumped to FTL, leaving human space behind. On the bridge of his flagship, Hyung-woo allowed himself a small smile. They had won without firing a single shot. The Council now knew that humans wouldn't be pushed around, and they had no idea how many ships humanity actually had. Gina Song received reports of the incident with mixed feelings. Pride that humanity had stood its ground. concern about what would come next. The Council would not ignore this challenge forever, but for now, the Terran Reach was safe. 17 systems, 43 species, all working together, all building something new. The Council had created their civilization over thousands of years, layer upon layer of tradition and hierarchy. Humanity was creating something different, something messier and more chaotic, but also more alive. That evening, Gina walked through the central plaza of New Sol City. Humans mixed with Karnathi, Trell, Nerati, and a dozen other species. A Karnathi farmer sold vegetables to a human family. A Trell engineer discussed a building project with human architects. A group of young humans played a game with Nerati. Children, all of them laughing despite their differences. This was what the Council feared, Gina realized. Not human violence or human unpredictability. They feared this. Species working together without hierarchy, without someone on top deciding who mattered and who didn't. The Council's entire system was based on order and control. Humanity offered chaos and freedom. And across the Outer Rim, more and more species were choosing freedom. Gina looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, the Council was watching. Let them watch, she thought. Let them see what humans built when given the chance. Let them see that rejection wasn't the end of humanity's story. It was only the beginning. 10 years after their rejection, humanity controlled 43 systems in the Outer Rim. The Terran Reach had become something the Galactic Council could no longer ignore. And what the Council could not ignore, they sought to destroy. But they could not do it openly. The Council prided itself on being civilized, enlightened, and just. Direct military action against humans would make them look like bullies and tyrants. Their own member species would question such aggression. So the Council chose a different path. They would destroy humanity using proxies. The Marauder clans had always been a problem in the Outer Rim. Pirates, raiders, and criminals from dozens of species who preyed on the weak. They fought each other as often as they fought anyone else, which kept them from becoming too dangerous. But the Council saw opportunity in chaos. Weapons began flowing to the Marauders. Advanced ships, energy shields, plasma cannons, equipment that criminals should never have been able to afford suddenly appeared in their fleets. The source was never mentioned, but everyone knew. The Council was arming the pirates. Commander Sora Lim, now a general, reviewed intelligence reports in her office on Shin Sol. The evidence was clear. Marauder attacks had increased by 300% in 6 months. Their weapons bore Council energy signatures. Their tactics had improved dramatically, as if someone was training them. It's a proxy war, she told Admiral Taiyang Park, who had come out of semi-retirement to help coordinate the defense. He was older now, his face weathered by years of stress, but his mind remained sharp. The Council can't attack us directly, so they're using the Marauders as their knife. How many ships do they have now? Taiyang asked. Our best estimate? 200 combat vessels, all recently upgraded, organized into 5 major clans. And they're working together now, which they never did before. Someone is coordinating them. Taiyang studied the star map on the wall. Red markers showed Marauder attacks. They were forming a pattern, slowly encircling human space. They're not just raiding anymore. They're planning an invasion. What's there? Likely target? Haisung Station, Sora said immediately. It's our largest trading hub. 17 species use it as their primary port. If they take Haisung, they cut our territory in half and destroy our credibility with our allies. Then we defend Haisung with everything we have. The Marauders attacked 3 weeks later. Their fleet dropped out of FTL space in a coordinated assault, over 100 ships moving in perfect formation. It was the largest pirate force ever assembled in the Outer Rim, At the center of their fleet were 3 massive battlecruisers, each one a Council design that shouldn't have existed outside the inner systems. Haisung Station's defenders scrambled to respond. 30 human warships, along with vessels from allied species, moved to intercept. They were outnumbered 3 to 1. The odds were terrible, but humans didn't care about odds. Admiral Taiyang. Park commanded from the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. Around him, crew members worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment. All ships, remember the plan. We're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to win, period. The Marauders charged forward, expecting the humans to meet them head-on. That's how civilized species fought. That's what the Council taught. Form battle lines, exchange fire, let superior numbers decide the outcome. Humans did something else. The human fleet scattered. Ships broke formation and dove in different directions. Some heading for the nearby asteroid field, others accelerating past the Marauder fleet entirely. It looked like panic. Like a rout, the Marauder commanders laughed and pursued. They split their forces to chase down the fleeing humans. It was exactly what Sora had predicted they would do. Council tactics emphasized order and formation. Breaking your own line to chase scattered enemies was considered sound strategy. Against humans, it was suicide. The asteroid field erupted with weapons fire. Human ships had been hiding among the rocks for hours, their engines cold, their sensors passive, waiting. When the Marauders entered the field, thinking they were chasing prey, they found themselves surrounded by predators. Missile launchers activated. Railguns fired. Energy weapons, a hybrid of human and alien technology developed by Unishin's team, tore through Marauder shields. The pirates had been trained to fight in open space, according to traditional rules. They had never trained for ambush warfare in asteroid fields. 20 Marauder ships died in the first 3 minutes. The human vessels that had accelerated past the fleet weren't running. They were flanking. They came around in a wide arc, attacking the Marauders from behind, while their attention was focused on the asteroid field. Caught between 2 forces, the pirate formation collapsed into chaos, but the Marauders still had numbers and firepower. Their 3 battlecruisers pushed forward, their heavy weapons destroying smaller human ships. These were Council-designed vessels, with shields that could absorb enormous damage. Standard human weapons barely scratched them. Commander Minho Chun, now captain of the assault ship Hammer, had anticipated this problem. His crew had spent months developing a solution that no Council engineer would have considered. They called it the Nail. The Nail was simple, brutal, and completely insane. Take a small ship, remove everything except engines and a single massive kinetic penetrator, and crash it into the target at maximum speed. It was a missile with a crew of 1, and that crew member had a one-way ticket. Nail Squadron, you're cleared for attack, Minot ordered. His voice was steady, showing none of the emotion he felt. He knew every pilot in the squadron personally. They were volunteers, all of them. They knew the mission. They knew the cost. 6 small ships detached from the human fleet and accelerated toward the battlecruisers. The Marauders tried to shoot them down, but the Nails were small, fast, and equipped with jamming equipment. They wove through defensive fire, their pilots displaying inhuman skill. At the last moment, each pilot ejected in a specially designed escape pod. The pod shot away at right angles, while the ships continued forward on autopilot. 5 Nails missed their targets or were destroyed, but 1 found its mark. The kinetic penetrator hit the lead battlecruiser at a significant fraction of light speed. The ship's shields, designed to absorb energy weapons, did nothing against pure kinetic force. The Nail punched through the hull like paper, and the battlecruiser tore itself apart from the inside. The Marauder fleet wavered. They had lost a third of their ships and 1 of their flagships. The humans were using tactics they had never seen. fighting in ways that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Taiyang pressed the advantage. All ships full assault. Don't give them time to regroup. The battle became a close-range brawl. Human ships darted between larger marauder vessels, targeting engines and weapons. Allied ships from the Kurnothi, Trell, and other species joined the fight, inspired by human courage. The marauders had expected an easy victory. Instead, they got a nightmare. After 17 hours of continuous combat, the marauder fleet broke and retreated. They left behind 60 destroyed ships and thousands of dead. The humans had lost 12 vessels and suffered heavy damage to many more. But Haisong Station still stood in the wreckage of the battle. Human salvage teams found proof of Council involvement. Weapons with Council serial numbers. Communication equipment configured to Council frequencies. Even a partially destroyed data core containing orders written in Council standard language. Gina Song, now Chancellor of a loose alliance called the Outer Rim Coalition, held an emergency session. Representatives from 47 species gathered on Shin. Seoul, the captured evidence was displayed for all to see. The Galactic Council has been secretly arming and coordinating marauder attacks against us, Gina announced. They could not destroy us openly, so they tried to do it through proxies. This is not an act of civilization. This is an act of cowardice. A Kurnothi representative stood, his scaled face angry. They did the same to us. Used bureaucracy and regulations to take our worlds, then acted innocent. We fled rather than fight because we had no allies. But now we do. One by one, the other species voiced their support. They had all suffered at the Council's hands in different ways. Pushed aside, ignored, exploited, discarded. Humanity had given them sanctuary when no one else would. Now they would stand with humanity against the Council's aggression. The Outer Rim Coalition was formalized that day. 47 species, unified in purpose. They pooled their resources, their knowledge, and their strength. At the center of it all was humanity, not as conquerors or rulers, but as partners who had proven their worth through action. Admiral Hyung Woo Nam began organizing the coalition's combined military force. Human tactical doctrine, which emphasized speed, deception, and asymmetric warfare, became the foundation. But each species contributed their own strengths. Trell swarming tactics, Kurnothi biological sensors, Noradi crystal-based communications that the Council couldn't intercept. The result was something unique. A military force that combined the best of 47 different approaches to warfare. Unpredictable, adaptable, dangerous. News of the coalition reached the inner systems and caused panic among Council leadership. The Outer Rim, once a lawless wasteland, had unified. The species they had rejected and discarded had formed an alliance. And at its heart were humans, the young and violent species the Council had tried to contain. The Vethran High Speaker called for escalation. Send the Council fleet to crush this upstart coalition before it grew stronger. But other Council members hesitated. The battle at Haisung had been instructive. Humans didn't fight like civilized species. They used ambushes, deception, and weapons that violated all reasonable standards of warfare. And they won. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council faced internal division. Some members wanted war. Others wanted negotiation. A few even suggested that maybe, just maybe, the Council had been wrong about humanity. On Shin Sol, Taiyang Park looked at the stars and allowed himself a tired smile. They had won a battle. The war was far from over. But humanity and its allies had proven something important. They could stand against the Council's proxy forces. They could defend what they had built. The Council had rejected humanity, thinking humans were too young to matter. Now those same humans had created an alliance that threatened the Council's millennia of dominance. Sometimes Taiyang thought rejection was the best thing that could happen to you. It forced you to prove your worth on your own terms. 15 years had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity. 15 years of struggle, growth, and transformation. The Outer Rim Coalition now controlled 90 systems and represented 123 species. What began as a desperate gamble by rejected humans had become a power that even the Council could not ignore. That the message arrived on a standard diplomatic channel. The Galactic Council requested a meeting with humanity and its coalition partners. They wanted to talk. After years of proxy warfare and hostile actions, the Council was finally ready to negotiate. Hana Cho, now Prime Minister of Earth and humanity's senior diplomat, read the message with careful eyes. She was older, gray threads running through her dark hair, but her mind remained sharp. She remembered standing in the council chamber 15 years ago, hearing them declare humanity unworthy. The memory still burned. "It's a trap," Commander Sora Lim said flatly. She attended the meeting via hologram, her military mindset suspicious of any council overture. "Probably," Hana agreed. "But we still have to hear what they want. If we refuse to talk, we look like the aggressors." Admiral Taiyang Park, now retired but still consulted on major decisions, nodded thoughtfully. "Meet them. But meet them on your terms. Not in their crystal palace where they hold all the power. Somewhere neutral." They chose Unity Point, a new space station built at the border between Coalition space and Council territory. It was human-designed, but constructed with help from dozens of species. A symbol of what the Coalition represented: cooperation, not domination. The Council delegation arrived first, as protocol demanded. 3 ships carrying representatives from the major Council powers. The Veteran High Speaker, looking like a silver jellyfish made of light. The Luminal Arbiter, a being of pure blue energy. The Collector Prime, a swarm of small creatures moving as one. And a dozen others, each ancient and powerful. They had come to judge humanity again. This time, the outcome would be different. Hana led the Coalition delegation. Beside her walked Chancellor Gina Song, representing the Rim Council. Admiral Hyun Woo Nam, in his formal military uniform. Dr. Do-Yoon Kong, whose research had helped humanity understand itself. And representatives from 20 other Coalition species, each one dressed in their finest, each one proud to stand beside humanity. The meeting chamber was circular, with no elevated positions. Everyone sat as equals. This alone bothered the Council delegates, who were used to occupying positions of authority. The Veteran High Speaker spoke first, its words appearing directly in everyone's minds. "Humanity of Earth, Coalition of the Outer Rim, the Galactic Council has observed your growth with interest. We acknowledge that you have brought order to a previously chaotic region. Your achievements are noteworthy." Hana waited. There would be more. There always was with the Council. "The Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership," the veteran continued. "You will have access to inter-system markets, technology, and knowledge. You will be recognized as an advanced civilization. The soul barrier will be removed. All restrictions will be lifted." Around the table, Coalition representatives stirred. This was what they had wanted 15 years ago. Full acceptance into galactic society, recognition, respect. Hana Cho stood slowly. She looked at each council representative in turn, then spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. "We decline." Silence filled the chamber. The council representatives stared at her in confusion. Decline? No species declined council membership. It was the highest honor in the galaxy. "Explain yourself," the Luminal Arbiter said, its voice like wind chimes made of ice. 15 years ago, I stood before the council and asked for membership," Hana said calmly. "I presented humanity's achievements and promised we would be good partners. You rejected us. You called us too young, too violent, too dangerous. You confined us to our home system and told us to prove ourselves over 1,000 years. She walked around the table as she spoke, her voice steady and clear. We accepted that judgment. We left your space and came to the Outer Rim. This place you had abandoned. This graveyard of empires that you deemed worthless. And here, in this darkness, we built something. Gina Song stood next. We built communities. We gave sanctuary to species you had discarded. The Kurnathi, whose worlds you took for development projects. The Trell, whose appearance you found disturbing. The Narati, who needed accommodations you wouldn't provide. 47 species found homes in the Coalition because we judged them by what they could contribute, not by how old their civilization was, or how well they fit your standards. A Kurnathi representative added his voice. The Council is built on hierarchy, on determining which species matter and which don't. You rejected humanity because they didn't meet your criteria. But in the Rim, we learned that worth isn't measured by age or compliance. It's measured by how you treat those weaker than yourself. The veteran High Speaker's silver light pulsed with agitation. The Council maintains order across 800 systems. We have kept peace for 3,000 years. Our structure ensures stability and prosperity. For some, Taiyang said quietly. He had remained silent until now, but his words carried weight. Your structure ensures prosperity for those at the top, the old civilizations, the powerful ones. But what about everyone else? What about the species you decide are economically unproductive or culturally incompatible? You maintain order, yes, but at what cost? Dajun Kang stood, his scientist's mind organizing thoughts into clear arguments. The Council represents stagnation. You've used the same technologies for thousands of years, the same social structures, the same way of thinking. You mistake age for wisdom and tradition for truth. Humanity succeeded in the Rim because we adapt. We innovate. We change. Those qualities you called primitive are actually what allowed us to thrive where your ancient civilizations failed. The Council representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had expected humanity to accept membership eagerly, to be grateful for the Council's recognition. This rejection was unprecedented. Hana returned to her seat and delivered her final statement. The Outer Rim Coalition has no interest in joining the Council. We have no desire to participate in a system built on hierarchy and judgment. Instead, we propose something different. A new framework for galactic society. She activated a holographic display showing a detailed agreement. The Galactic Compact. The Council maintains full authority over the inner systems, as they always have. The Coalition governs the Outer Rim independently. A joint tribunal with equal representation from both groups mediates disputes. Trade and travel between regions are unrestricted. No species is forced to join either group. Each civilization chooses its own path. And military matters? The veteran asked carefully. Neither side interferes in the other's territory, Hyunwoo said firmly. No proxy wars. No secret weapons shipments. No manipulation. We exist as separate but equal powers, cooperating where our interests align, staying separate where they don't. The Council delegates withdrew to deliberate. Hours passed. The Coalition representatives waited patiently. They had built their society over 15 years of hard work. They would not compromise it for the sake of Council approval. When the delegates returned, the veteran High Speaker looked older somehow, though that might have been imagination. The Council accepts your proposal. The Galactic Compact will be established. Both sides will govern their respective regions independently. Hannah allowed herself a small smile. They had no choice. Military conflict between the Council and Coalition would devastate both sides. And many council species, seeing humanity's example, were already questioning the rigid hierarchy they lived under. If the council refused this reasonable compromise, they would look like tyrants. The signing ceremony took place on Earth. In the rebuilt city of Seoul, leaders from across the galaxy gathered in a massive plaza overlooking the ocean. The council representatives stood on one side, formal and ancient. The coalition representatives stood on the other, diverse and energetic. Captain Jung-ho Beek, now governor of Shin Seoul and a symbol of human perseverance, watched from the crowd. He thought about that first landing 15 years ago. The fear, the uncertainty, the determination to prove the council wrong. They had done it, not by becoming what the council wanted, but by being what they chose to be. Yuna Shin stood beside him, her engineering genius having transformed coalition technology. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually did it." "We did," Junho agreed. "And now the real work begins." Sang-hoon Lee, whose trading networks had brought prosperity to billions, raised a glass in celebration. Around him, humans and aliens mingled freely. A sight that would have been impossible 15 years ago. A sight that was now ordinary in coalition space. Minho Chun, scarred from battles, but finally at peace, watched young children playing nearby. Human children and alien children, laughing together without seeing difference. That, he thought, was what they had really accomplished. Not military victories or political agreements, but a future where species could simply coexist without judgment. The signing took hours as each leader added their mark to the compact. When it was done, Hana stood before assembled representatives and delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. 15 years ago, the council rejected humanity. They told us we were too young, too violent, too dangerous. They believed rejection would teach us to conform to their standards. Instead, it taught us to create our own. We learned that youth can mean adaptability, not ignorance. That violence can mean strength to protect the weak, not mindless destruction. That being dangerous means having the power to defend what we build, not the desire to tear down what others create. The council believed in hierarchy, in deciding which species matter and which don't. We believe in opportunity, in judging beings by their potential, not their past, in building bridges instead of walls. Today, we sign the Galactic Compact. 2 ways of organizing society, coexisting peacefully. The Council has its 3,000 years of tradition and stability. We have our 15 years of innovation and growth. Both have value. Both deserve to exist. And both are stronger for acknowledging the other. She looked at the council representatives. "You rejected us because we didn't meet your standards. Thank you. That rejection freed us to discover who we really are, to build something that reflects human values, not ancient protocols. You wanted us to prove ourselves over 1,000 years. We did it in 15. The Outer Rim no longer belongs to humanity alone. We share it with 123 species who chose freedom over hierarchy, opportunity over tradition, potential over pedigree. Together, we built a civilization that values what you can become, not what you were. We were rejected by the council, and in that rejection, we found our purpose. We found our partners. We found ourselves. 30 years later, the Outer Rim Coalition had expanded to 150 systems and 200 species. Young civilizations from across the galaxy migrated to coalition space, seeking the freedom to develop on their own terms. The Council's inner systems, once the pinnacle of galactic society, began to stagnate as their brightest minds left for the opportunities of the Rim. The statue at Unity Point Station commemorated that transformation. It showed Ambassador Hana Cho standing with a Kurnathi farmer, a Trell engineer, and a human child. The inscription read simple words that captured humanity's journey. They said we were not ready for the stars. So we made our own constellations. Humanity had been rejected by the council, and in being rejected, they had risen to dominate not through conquest, but through example. They proved that youth could triumph over age, that adaptation could defeat tradition, and that the rejected and discarded could build something greater than those who had cast them aside.